This is the Thriving Dentist Show with Gary Takis, where we help you develop your ideal dental practice, one that provides personal, professional, and financial satisfaction.
Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Dentist Show. I'm Gary Takis, your podcast co-host. We have a fun episode for you today. The title is in the form of a question. And the title to today's podcast episode is, Who are your mentors? Well, I'm excited about sharing this information with you, and I think this might be one that can make a massive difference in your professional life and in your practice. Hey, before we get to that podcast episode, though, I have a couple of announcements to make. The first announcement I have coming up a few weeks after this episode gets published is our next Thriving Dentist Masterclass. This is coming up December 6th, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 3-hour evening course, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. And the title of this masterclass is Creating Your First 100 Days Plan for 2024. This is a brand new masterclass, never been given. And I'll tell you what my motivation is on creating this masterclass and doing this masterclass is. It's all about having an intentional practice, as opposed to a practice that just flaps in the breeze and responds to what's happening. It's all about having an intentional practice. And some of you may be familiar with the history, at least here in the United States, of the 100-day plan. That's been something that every president in the United States has used. Every new president of the United States has used since FDR, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It's been used since the early 1930s. And the concept is every president has wanted to launch their administration as successfully as possible. And they have a whole library of resources of people that help them develop their first 100-day plan. Because the theory is if you get the administration started off right in the first 100 days, then it'll likely be a very successful administration. Well, same thing. If we get your year started off right in the first 100 days of the year, then you've got that snowball rolling downhill, lots of positive momentum. Imagine what you're doing here that could absolutely result in 2024 being your best year yet. Well, hey, come join us. Again, that's December 6th, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And that masterclass is titled Creating Your First 100 Days Plan for 2024. If you'd like to register for that, go to thrivingdentist.com/masterclass. By the way, our masterclasses do sell out, even though they're done virtually. We do limit capacity because we like to run them more as a workshop than a lecture. If you're interested and there's seats available, go grab a seat and you'll be happy you did. Now, the second announcement I have is we're going to do something a little bit different today. I've invited my friend, Naren Alruraja, to provide the tip. Now, of course, it's not a clinical tip because Naren is not a dentist, but he's going to provide this next tip that I think will enhance all of your practices. And the specific title that he's going to talk about in this tip is, do you have a chat feature that engages patients 24/7, 365? Well, you're going to enjoy this wisdom from Naren about the value of a chat feature.
Hello, everyone. This is Naren. Today, I'll be sharing the Thriving Dentist tip. As you know, I'm also the co-host of the podcast, and the topic that I'll be giving you a tip on today is titled, Do you have a chatbot that engages patients 24 hours a day? Do you have a chatbot that engages patients 24 hours a day? And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to answer commonly asked questions about chatbots. I'm going to talk about what it is and how it works and answer some commonly asked questions. The first question I get is, why need a chatbot? Your website, your business typically is open 40 hours a week. The other hours, right? And a week has 176 hours. The other hours, nobody's there to answer the phone. So when somebody goes to your website, let's say they find you through SEO, and they're going there at 7 p.m. They're going there on a weekend. They're going there on a day you're closed. You don't want to lose them, right? They're like, well, let me come back. And they'll say, oh, I'll come back and call their office on Monday or Tuesday or the next day you're open. But what happens? Monday, they're busy with something else. So most of these people who are going to your website off working hours never engage with you. So the goal of the chatbot is to find a way to engage with them. So the right way to do a chatbot is you want directional chatbots, meaning instead of answering any and every question, you want it to guide the conversation. So we set up a chatbot. I'm the founder and CEO of Equa Marketing for all of our clients, and we do it at no cost. And the way we do it is it sits on the website. It also can sit on a messenger. So either through Messenger, either through WhatsApp, or through your website, it sits there saying, how can I help you? So you see that chat button. Many people will click on it, definitely during off hours, but even during working hours. Let's say they're in the office and they don't have the ability to pick up the phone and call because their coworker is sitting next to them. So they would click on the chatbot, and the chatbot would guide them. It'll ask things like, are you a new patient or an existing patient? New patient. How can we help you? They type what they're looking for. What's your name, phone number, email. And then as soon as it collects those information, it sends it to you. So your office has all that information as soon as they see it. So let's say the chat comes in, let's say Thursday evening at 7 p.m., Friday morning, you're back in the office, you see it. Immediately, instead of that person coming to your site, you not knowing who that person is, you now know who that person is and how you can help them. So your office immediately calls them back, builds a relationship, books that appointment. One question I get is, how many new patients can I expect from a chatbot? This is a math question, right? Chatbot will not generate new patients on its own. SEO does. As many of you know, we do SEO. We help our clients dominate Google for hundreds of keywords. So let's say you are dominating Google for hundreds of keywords, or you're running Google Ads and you're getting lots of people going to your website. Typically, for every 100 people who go to your website, 2 people will engage with chatbots. So if you have 400 people going to your website, you will get 8 people engaging with chatbots. So that's a good way to think about it. So right, if it's 8 a month, that's 96 extra new patients a year. Another question I get asked a lot is, should I pay for this standalone because my marketing company doesn't offer it? I really think you should insist your marketing company offers this capability, because to me, it rounds out their entire marketing funnel, the marketing process. So I wouldn't pay for it. There's 2 reasons I don't want to pay for it, because A, you don't want the extra $100 a month, and B, when you have multiple companies handling it, person A says person B is doing it wrong, and you go back and forth, and when something stops working, nobody's catching it because these are 2 different companies. So it's better to get one company to handle it. Another question I get asked a lot is, what about ChatGPT? What about AI? My answer is no. We've experimented with it, and what we found out is AI is like a fun toy, right? It's like talking to an interesting 15-year-old, really smart person. But our goal is not to have entertain our potential patients, rather to find out who they are so we can call them as soon as we open and then book their appointment. So the problem with AI-driven chatbots is it doesn't really do a good job in booking appointments. So the chatbot we designed is specifically tailored to getting you those extra new appointments. So hope you got some value today from everything I just covered. If you have further questions about chatbot, I recommend booking a marketing strategy meeting. In addition to talking about chatbots, we'll also review your entire digital marketing, tell you how you are doing, give you a report card, and also give you a plan to dominate Google and dominate SEO. The link for that is ekwa.com/MSM, ekwa.com/MSM. Hope you enjoyed this tip. See you soon with the Coaching in Action segment. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Thriving Dentist Coaching in Action segment. This is Narain, your co-host. Hope you enjoyed that tip from me about chat feature and how the chat feature can help engage your patients. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us through the website, thrivingdentist.com, or you could even go to equa.com. Or you know what? Feel free to email me, narain@equa.com. I would love to answer your questions personally. Let's jump into today's Coaching in Action topic. Who are your mentors? I do believe both Gary and I were blessed to have some amazing mentors who helped us when we were still figuring things out and still new to the game of business and new to the game of whatever that we ended up doing with our lives. And I bet many of the people listening to this podcast would say the same thing, especially the ones perhaps in their 40s and 50s and 60s. I think the idea of having a mentor was a common idea back then, but I'm not really sure if that's as common or as prevalent today as it was once before. So Gary, really looking forward to this. And I think it's a great question, right? Who are your mentors? So I love that topic.
Yeah, it's such an important topic because mentors can be so very influential in our lives. And I love the quote that says, "If I can see farther, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants." So if I can see farther, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. Such a great quote, and I really think that kind of defines what a mentor can be and how a mentor can influence you. And recently, this topic has become more top of mind for me. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to co-teach a course with my dear friend, Dr. Paul Henney, and it was on the concept of co-discovery. We did a 2-day workshop on the whole art and science of co-discovery and how co-discovery can be used successfully in your practice. And co-discovery is a concept that was largely influenced by some of the real leaders in our profession, including Bob Barkley. Now, if any of you aren't familiar with Bob Barkley, I would like to help you become familiar with him. Bob Barkley is just a tremendous, can be a mentor for all of us, though posthumously now. Sadly, we lost Bob Barkley in 1977 in a plane crash. And if I can share with you how strongly I feel about his influence, here we are in 2023, and in many ways, we're still trying to catch up to where Bob Barkley was in 1977 when he passed at the age of 46. If you'd like to learn more about Bob Barkley, I would encourage you to become a member of the private Facebook group, the Bob Barkley Study Club. This was created by my friend, Dr. Paul Henney. It's a private Facebook group. You have to request admittance. But just let in the question you answer, just say, "Hey, Gary referred you to the Thriving Dentist Show, referred you," and Paul will let you in. And it's just a great group. But in the workshop that we did, it was Paul talked about some of Bob Barkley's history, and I'm going to read a quote here. Said, "We have all enjoyed the benefit of many teachers and influence over the course of our practicing life and beyond. Bob Barkley had many as well, including," now listen to some of these people: Dr. L.D. Pankey, Dr. F. Harold Worth, Nate Cohen, Paul Keyes, Sumter Arnon, Chris Agres, Avram King, Chuck Sorensen, Omer Reed, Don Clifton, Dwayne Furman, and others. Now, if you know anything about clinical dentistry or psychology, the group that I just named are literally at the top of the class in either clinical dentistry or psychology, and specifically in the behavioral side of dentistry. And so you can see how all of those mentors help to develop the way Bob Barkley thought about things. And I just wanted to kind of use that as motivation to start thinking about your own mentors and the mentors that you have in your life. And mentors can be physical. That can be someone you actually meet with, physically. I still think of Dr. L.D. Pankey as a mentor in my life. He passed away in 1989. However, I still think of him as a mentor in my life, posthumously, through his writings, through his teaching, through his videos, through his book. So we can have mentors who are no longer with us. They don't have to necessarily be in physical form. Dr. Pete Dawson is another one I absolutely think of as a mentor in my life. Pete's gone, but he's still a mentor. Another one from outside of dentistry, and Darren, if I ask you to name my favorite author, who would that be?
Dale Carnegie? Oh, Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey.
Yeah. Dale Carnegie's right there, but Stephen Covey would have to be my favorite author. Although we lost Stephen Covey in 2014, he's still a massive influence and mentor in my life through his work. So who are your mentors? Think about that. And let's come back to the concept I introduced when we were talking about the masterclass. It's all about being intentional, intentional. There's some dentists that aren't really intentional about their CE. They just wait to see when a course comes up, or they get a flyer, or they see something on Facebook, and then that looks interesting, and then they go. And there's nothing wrong with pursuing your CE that way. Nothing wrong with that. But I might suggest that you may get better results if you pursue your CE very intentionally. And in fact, one of the things we do, one of our systems that we work with our clients is to always have a 3-year CE plan for our clients, a 3-year CE plan. So 2023, 2024, 2025. And every year, so coming up when we finish 2023, I ask my client to create it for the next year, which would be 2026. So you always have a 3-year plan. And that's for the big C. That's not necessarily for the everyday stuff, but that's for the big CE that you want to pursue. And one of the things I ask my clients to do is to think about how do they want to use CE as perhaps a credentialing value, a way to credential. Is it something you'd like to achieve relative to your CE? You know, do you want to earn a fellowship in the Academy of General Dentistry? Do you want to earn a mastership in the Academy of General Dentistry? Do you want to become accredited by the AACD? Do you want to earn a fellowship in an implant society? Do you want to, there's all kinds of achievements that you can earn based on what your clinical interests are. You know, what are the high value services you want to add in your practice? So again, talk about being intentional. How would you like your treatment mix to be based on where your interests are? Instead of just based on whatever shows up in your practice, how would you like what would you like the composition of your treatment mix to be? To be very intentional. Is adult orthodontics something you're interested in? And if that was it, where would you go? If learning how to restore dental implants is something you'd like to pursue, where would you go for that? Who do we seek out as mentors on that? Maybe you would actually like to at some point get to a point where you place and restore implants. Well, where do you want to pursue that? Naren, I'm going to bring you into this and talk a little bit about how this can actually work in your favor in terms of marketing and getting listed on page 1 of Google, because in fact, one of the things that Google cares about, Google loves acronyms. They're the acronym king. Google is. And one of the acronyms is called EAT, EAT, just like it sounds. And what that means is expertise, authority, trust. Explain how earning credentials can not only enhance the level of service you deliver for your patients, but can enhance the likelihood you get found on page 1 when someone's looking for a particular kind of service.
Absolutely. So Google algorithms look at 6 things primarily. If you do extremely well in those 6 areas, you are in the top of Google and you get a lot of free traffic, which, gives you a competitive advantage because your cost of acquiring those patients will be a fraction versus Google Ads.
And just to clarify, we're talking about SEO, organic SEO. Organic means you're not paying for it.
Right.
There's 2 ways to get on page 1 of Google. One way is to pay for it.
Yes.
That's called pay-per-click or Google Ads.
Right.
And anybody can pay for it and get on page 1. Or you can earn it organically, meaning that you didn't pay for it, but you earned the ranking. And as a result of you earning the ranking, you show up on page 1. I might politely suggest that while we can play the pay-per-click game, most dentists don't have enough money to play that game really well.
Yeah, it is like 5 to 10 times more expensive than, getting traffic for free through Google, because, Google last year, I think, made 224 billion. Last quarter, they made 78 billion. So they are on track to do like 280 billion. I mean, they used to be, make more money than 150 countries. Now they're going to make more money than probably like 170 countries. It's just crazy how much money Google Ads makes for Google. So of course, the way they do that is to charge you more money per click. And so you just you keep paying more and more and more for less and less results through Google Ads. Anyways, to answer your question, Gary, so one of those 6 things you need to master to get on page 1 for free through SEO is Google EAT. And Google EAT, E stands for expertise, A for authority, and T for trust. Expertise is defined as your qualification. So let's say you have a mastership from the Academy of General Dentistry. That's a qualification. You should highlight it. And Google, will value that. And if they have a choice between ranking somebody who doesn't have that qualification versus somebody who does, the one who has that qualification has a little bit of a leg up. Of course, that alone is not enough, but it definitely helps. So any kind of qualifications that that gives you a designation of some sort, then of course you should pursue it. But I do come back to Gary's point, which is, don't do it for the sake of doing it. Don't do it because everybody else is doing it. Do it because you love it. Do it because it's something you want to do. It's something you set an intention and it's important to you. So like really thinking about who is my mentor, who is, what kind of qualifications do I want to have? What kind of dentistry do I want to do? I think all those are really good questions.
I've had the privilege over the years of having the opportunity to speak on many different programs. I've spoken at just about every dental conference in North America. And the process of doing that, I've had the opportunity to meet many, many, many mentors, through that process. And one of the characteristics that I've learned, the mentors that I've had a chance to rub shoulders with are absolutely passionate about what they do. Their passion just comes out of every pore. I think of Dr. David Hornbrook in the world of cosmetic dentistry. And if any of you have taken a course from David Hornbrook, you know what I'm talking about. And the other characteristic that I know about, these people that could be your mentors, they truly love engaging with other dentists and passing along their wisdom and sharing what they've learned. And they're very passionate about it, and they will spend time with you if you're in their circle, they will spend time with you to help you shortcut all the things they had to learn by the school of hard knocks. So if you haven't already thought about being intentional about your CE, it's time to get really intentional about your CE. So I'm going to just talk about randomly, in no particular order. I'm going to talk about some of the people that I think are absolutely amazing. At the risk, of course, of not having enough time here to name everyone. I won't hit everyone here for sure. But for example, if you're really interested, I'll start with cosmetic dentistry. If you're really interested in cosmetic dentistry, I would absolutely direct you to the courses that David Hornbrook gives. David and his team give courses. Go to davidhornbrook.com and you'll see his courses. He has live patient courses where you go to Utah, you bring a patient. Over the course of 2 weekends, you do a 10-unit upper anterior porcelain veneer case. His co-director in that course is another individual that I count as a mentor, Dr. Mark Montgomery. David calls his cosmetic courses functional aesthetics, because you have to pay attention to occlusion, not just the appearance of those teeth. You got to pay attention to occlusion. So they kind of have a divide and conquer format there, where Mark teaches the occlusion component of that course, and David teaches the cosmetic portion of that course. They co-teach together. Dee Reed, a longtime friend of mine, is part of their team. Another wonderful person that you should consider as a mentor is Dee Reed. In the world of complex restorative dentistry, maybe you'd like to advance your restorative skill. Maybe your patient base is getting older and you're finding more complex needs, not just the everyday stuff. Where would you go to learn how to do complex restorative dentistry? I'm going to name 3 resources that I think are fantastic. The Pankey Institute in Key Biscayne, Florida. I have a bias. I'll declare my bias here. I'm on faculty at Pankey. I had the privilege of meeting Dr. Pankey very early in my career, made such a massive influence on me. I was very honored to be invited to join their faculty, and I teach as part of the faculty. I spend about 7 weeks a year teaching the business and behavioral components at the Pankey Institute. Pankey would be a great place for you to go. There's a series of courses. They call them their Essentials Continuum. There's 4, E1, E2, E3, E4. Each one's a week long, and you take those, and each one builds on the previous one. By the time you complete E4, you have a very refined skill set to do complex restorative dentistry. To be fair, there are other places, Spear Education here in Scottsdale, named after Dr. Frank Spear. They're doing some amazing work in complex restorative dentistry. Spear is great. They also have a really good online curriculum of clinical courses, an online library that's also very, very good. I would also like to point out John Coyce, the work that Dr. Coyce is doing in Seattle, another great place to go to do complex restorative dentistry. I also like to just name Gary DeWood, Dr. Gary DeWood. Many of you will recognize that name. Gary's a friend. Gary's doing some amazing things and helping doctors master the world of complex restorative dentistry. write down these names. I know most of you are driving when you're listening to this, but maybe you want to re-listen to this back at your desk and write down some of these names. Leanne Brady is our director at the Pankey Institute. And, Leanne is just one of my favorite people in the world. She's not only a brilliant clinician, she's an amazing human being. Anytime you have an opportunity to take a course from Leanne Brady, you'd be very, very, very well served. I'll keep going in other areas too. I believe the Academy of General Dentistry does some very cool things. I appreciate their tracks and their programs that they have. You can earn your fellowship in the AGD. You can earn a mastership in the AGD. Oftentimes they're organized around local or regional study groups where all of the study group are working towards fellowship or mastership. A great way to get a really good foundation in a variety of general dental services as well. I also really appreciate the work that AACD, the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry, is doing. Great work there. If you're interested in cosmetic dentistry, I would strongly encourage you to become accredited by the AACD. There's only about 400 accredited members in the United States. It's rarefied air. It's not easy to get, but it would be certainly worth your time and effort. Another association that I like an awful lot is the American Association of Oral Systemic Health, AOSH, AAOSH, American Association of Oral Systemic Health. Great work that they do. They have a national conference as well. Implants, if you're interested in implants, placing and restoring or just restoring implants, there's some great places to go. Justin Moody, a longtime friend of mine, runs a terrific program called Implant Pathway. Great way to learn about dental implants. And if that's of interest, Arun Garg, another mentor. If you like the world of implants, Arun Garg is absolutely as talented as they come in the world of dental implants. On the behavioral side, on the learning about the people side of dentistry, I'll recommend some mentors. Of course, my friend Paul Haney. Become a member of the Bob Barkley Study Club. That would be a great way for you to enhance your knowledge about the behavioral side of dentistry. Come out and take some of our workshops on co-discovery. I co-teach those with Paul Haney, but Paul would be one. Another one is Mary Osborne. Mary Osborne is a brilliant authority in the behavioral side of dentistry. Mary is another very dear friend and someone that would be a great mentor to all of you. Incidentally, every year, Leanne Brady, Mary Osborne, and Joan Undershoot do a great course in August every year called Leadership and Legacy. Leadership and Legacy would be a great place for you to go if leadership is something that you would like to work on. Well, at the risk of leaving many out, I wanted to name some names. And hopefully I've inspired you to seek out some of the experts that I've named and get into their sphere of influence. Oh, one more site that I would encourage you to take a look at is Restorative Nation. RestorativeNation.com. Restorative Nation is a website that was developed by Leanne Brady and her team. And there's just a massive amount of clinical content, very affordable. It's an inexpensive monthly membership fee, very good way to enhance sophisticated knowledge in a very affordable format. And of course, because it's on video, you can just keep watching it until you get it. So RestorativeNation.com would be another really, really good place to go. Another like community. Dentistry is a collection of tribes. Find your tribe. Find the clinical areas that interest you, and then find the authorities in that area and seek them out. Get on their mailing list, get on their email list, take courses given by them, buy the books that they've written. And next thing you know, your acceleration will be like on a rocket. You'll be appreciative in the same way that Bob Barkley was. Well, Naren, I know we have some great questions coming up in the Q&A segment. But for now, let me bring it back full circle. Who are your mentors? How intentional are you being about advancing your career? I believe that as you work through both of those questions, you'll be eternally grateful for that result, for sure. We'll pause here and we'll get to our Thriving Dentist question and answer segment.
Welcome back to the Thriving Dentist Q&A segment. Gary, I really enjoyed this conversation about mentoring, right? The title was, Who Are Your Mentors? Awesome topic. I think that's the thought process. That's the question that every successful dentist has. And hopefully now you can, all the ideas that Gary shared, hopefully all of you can embrace. Gary,
if you remember, I used a quote at the beginning of our coaching in action segment. It said that if I can see further, it's because I've stood on the shoulder of giants.
Yes.
Do you know who that quote came from?
If I can see further, it's because I have stood
on the shoulder of giants. I remembered who it was, so I thought I'd put this in the Q&A segment. It was Sir Isaac Newton.
Oh,
Sir Isaac Newton. He's the one that said, if I can see further, it's because I've stood on the shoulder of giants. And that's such an appropriate quote for the topic of mentors, because we can all come in on the shoulder of our mentors, on the shoulders of our mentors. And it's a great way to, having mentors is a great way to accelerate your learning, your knowledge, your career. It's a great way to gain the wisdom of others. It's just something that I would encourage every one of our listeners to be actively involved in having mentors, and on the other side, mentoring others.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gary. Let's jump into the questions. We have 4 questions for you. The first question is, I am a recent dental school graduate with limited resources to invest in CE right now. What are some courses you would recommend for me?
What a great question. So limited resources, I'm going to assume in plain English, that means he or she doesn't have a whole lot of money. Right?
Probably a lot of loans. They do have negative money, but
student loans, right? That could apply to any of our listeners at any stage of their career, but it's probably absolutely appropriate for being a relatively recent graduate.
Yes.
So we've got to stretch the budget. So I'm going to share some resources with you. I'm very specific. I have found a particular course as a great way to enhance your knowledge and your skill early in your career, whether you're an associate in a practice, whether you own your own practice yet or not. It's a great way to start. And that's the DOCS, D-O-C-S, Dental Organization for Conscious Sedation, DOCS. And it's a course on oral conscious sedation. What a great skill. But now that is a tuition-based course. You're going to pay some tuition for that. But it's relatively modest. It's a day and a half, and it will give you all the skills you need to successfully incorporate oral conscious sedation. It's triazolam, benzodiazepine that you'll be administering. And what a great way to build a practice, because we know that 49% of the adults in the United States, Naren, 49% put off a visit to the dentist because of fear. 49%, it's almost half. They postpone going to the dentist because they're afraid. 22% won't go at all because of their fear. The fear is so great. And we've discovered that oral conscious sedation is a great way to let people know that we can take care of them, using oral conscious sedation, so every visit will be as comfortable as possible. And that helps that 49% that are afraid of coming. And then the 22% that won't, many of those will come in when they discover you offer oral conscious sedation. So that's one place I would go. And then we've got to stretch the budget a little bit. So we've got to look for some CE that's relatively less expensive. And there's some great online options. So one of the online options I would steer you to is a Restorative Nation. Just like it sounds. It's an online CE site put out by Leanne Brady, Dr. Leanne Brady. It's absolutely brilliant. There's an entire library of content. Much of it is clinical in nature. I would say probably 85% of it is clinical. Maybe 15% of it is leadership, practice management, team building, that sort of thing. Mary Osborne is a contributor on that side. Mary Osborne deserves to be a mentor to all of you, and she can be that mentor via Restorative Nation. Very inexpensive. It's a monthly fee. Very, very, very inexpensive. And then Gordon Christensen, his practical clinical courses. You all know Gordon, or you know of him. Practical Clinical Courses is the name of his CE company. And Gordon offers a 50% discount for all dentists that are 5 years or less out of school on all of his courses, whether they be in-person courses or his digital library. He's got over 200 topical videos clinically. The videos are amazing. When I say video, they're online, digitally, but he's got over 200 of those. And whether you attend a course live or you purchase things through their library, if you're 5 years or less out of school, you get a 50% discount. There's 3 suggestions there that are good, budget-friendly suggestions and awesome level CE. What you're going to learn from our friends at Docs, Dr. Michael Silverman and his team, what you're going to learn from Dr. Leanne Brady and her amazing facilitators at Restorative Nation, and what you're going to learn through Gordon and his team is just some of the best in the world, and you're able to do that at a very affordable budget. So there's the answer there, Naren.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. Let me go to question number 2. This is from a different listener of the Thriving Dentist podcast show. And this is, I think, a question that probably anybody in practice has. I know you help your clients plan their CE for the next 3 years. So that's part of your coaching. So you want them to think through CE, not just for this year or the next, but also the following year. So this question is, what is an appropriate annual budget to spend on CE?
That's a really good question. And it's a really hard one to answer, because so many questions, the appropriate answer is it depends. It depends. But I'm gonna attempt to answer it. And I would encourage you to spend as much as you can comfortably, being respectful of your debt load and being respectful of your household budget. But I would encourage you to maybe invest more earlier in your career, even though that sounds counterintuitive, because of the foundation that's going to establish that it's going to allow you to just have massive geometric gains in your clinical knowledge. But something I'd like to, so before I give you a number, I'm going to share, I will give you a number, but before I give you that number, I'm going to share some ideas. Think about where you want to go in terms of credentialing. Not that the public understands any of those credentials. Do you think the public understands those alphabet soup credentials that go after your name?
No, they don't.
They don't
As a marketing person, I know they really don't understand it. Of course, they think the more these alphabet soup credentials you have, hopefully you are.
But Google understands it. Google understands what an MAGD is, or an FAGD.
Yes.
FAGD is a fellowship in the Academy of General Dentistry, and MAGD is a mastership. They understand what being accredited by the AACD means. They understand what being a fellow by the AACD means.
Right.
They get that. But even if the public doesn't understand, but we can help the public understand it. For example, your team members can be your, they can be the ones that help your patients understand. They can say, like, if a patient's interested in cosmetic dentistry, they can say, you are in the right office. Our doctor loves cosmetic dentistry. She's a member of the AACD, and she's not only a member of the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry, but she has become accredited. And there's only about 400 people in the world that have earned that credential. Now, would you believe with what I just said, the public will understand that when I say it the way I just said it, Naren?
Absolutely. If you explain it correctly, of course they will understand it.
They'll understand. So maybe think about tracking. Think about maybe you want to go the AGD track like Paul and Tim did, and many of our clients have. It's a great way to get a broad general understanding. The nice thing about doing an AGD track is there's very often local study clubs that are very inexpensive. So again, you can stretch the budget by being involved in a local AGD study club. And there might be some minor tuition involved just to support the speakers they bring in and that sort of thing, but it's not a profit center for the study club. It's meant to pool resources to bring in the experts. So think about a track. Do you want to become, earn a mastership or a fellowship in the AGD, then a mastership? Do you want to become accredited by the AACD? Do you want to take your CE on an implant track or maybe an adult orthodontics track? Think about that. But now I'm going to suggest a budget, Naren, and I hope no one falls off their seat. But I would suggest that an appropriate annual budget might be around $10,000 a year. $10,000 a year. That's a lot of money, and I'm not throwing that number out casually. And I know many of you will roll your eyes and say, "Oh my God, I can't do that." But see what you can do, to carve as much of that as you can. I know doctors that have gone on a massive CE, binge with spending more than that, much more than that. And every time they'll say, investing in myself is the best investment that I can possibly make. And that's the way you ought to be thinking about it. Investing in yourself is probably the best investment you make. Beats playing the market or, buying Bitcoin, for sure, at least these days, for sure. So there's a suggestion, and I provide that with a caution that, you still have to provide for your family. So I understand, but as much as you can afford to spend, it'll pay off in many, many ways.
I do like this idea of like starting with the end in mind, right? Knowing where you want to go and then plan accordingly. I think that's a good way to think about it, I think, Gary.
If you're early on and you're doing work with Gordon, that $10,000 annual fee, if you're less than 5 years out of school, you get $20,000 worth of CE for that because of the 50% discount. Thanks, right. Gordon. Thanks, Dr. Christensen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary, for that. And question number 3, what is your perspective on virtual CE courses versus in-person CE courses? You have done both.
Oh, yeah. That's a very timely question right now. Of course, everything went virtual in COVID. Everything. Yes. They had to. And yet, fairly quickly, in-person courses started to come back as soon as it was safe to be in groups again. So here's my thoughts on that. If a course is didactic and it's lecture, I might suggest that a virtual course can be a good way to stretch the budget if it's didactic and if it's lecture. The nice thing about virtual courses is you typically have the opportunity to review it again and again and again, so that you can go back and review it till you really get the concepts, seated. So if it's didactic, it's a lecture, I would encourage you to take a look at virtual courses. However, when it comes to hands-on type courses, of course, if it's hands-on, you're going to want to pursue more of a live course format. Even if it's lab related, for example, you're working, maybe you're taking an implant course that's more hands-on, but it's in a lab and you're placing implants on synthetic teeth or pig's jaws. Then the in-person makes more sense for that. And ultimately, the best way to learn anything clinically is a live patient course. There's not a lot of that because it's very expensive to give live patient courses. Very, very expensive. 2 live patient courses that are absolutely fabulous is Dr. David Hornbrook gives his functional aesthetics course. And that's where you go to Utah. It's at Roseman Dental School in Utah over 2 weekends, Friday, Saturday, over 2 weekends. You bring a patient and you bring an assistant, and you're going to do a 10-unit upper anterior porcelain veneer case on your patient. There's going to be 19 other dentists and yourself. There'll be 20 dentists in that course. So it's a relatively small group. And you get to do your case and you get to see 19 others. And for the value of that course, it's less than $6,000. Of course, you have other expenses. You have some travel expenses. You have the lab expense, but you could have a patient pay part of that and underwrite that course, for example. But that's a course where you really get to accelerate your aesthetic skills because you're doing your own case under the guidance of his amazing faculty. And of course, you get to see the 19 other cases, which kind of builds a library of information for you to use in future cases in your practice. Another example of a live patient course is the work that Justin Moody does with Implant Pathway. It's a year-long mini residency, if you will, where you come to Phoenix 4 different weekends. First 2 weekends are sim lab type thing where you're placing implants on synthetic jaws, on pig's jaws. The last 2 weekends, you are placing implants on homeless veterans. These have been pre-screened through Justin and a social service agency. These are healthy veterans are not experiencing any health issues. They're non-smokers. They're not experiencing any health issues. They're living, in a shelter and getting good nutrition. And you're able to help wonderful people that have served our country by providing them implants to rebuild their oral health through the use of dental implants. There's two examples where I would lean more towards in-person courses because of the fact that those are live patient courses. And there's others, of course, but there's two that I would highlight for sure.
Thank you. Last question number 4. As a regular listener of your podcast, I know you are very passionate about the behavioral side of dentistry and helping dentists build their communication and people skills. Are there any CE resources you would recommend to build this skill set?
Well, I'm going to give you a great question, and I love it because it's it's in my wheelhouse, which is helping doctors master the behavioral side of dentistry. Dentistry is a people game, and I might suggest that the ultimate altitude of your success will be a function of how well you've developed your behavioral skills. Yes, you've got to do great clinical dentistry, of course, but the ultimate altitude of where you go in your career might be more determined by how you develop your own behavioral skills. And years ago, I asked that question to every mentor that I could find. So, when it comes to dentists, most of them gravitate towards clinical courses because that's where their interest is, and that's where it should be. But I asked a lot of different mentors that same question: what should be the mix? And here's what I got. This was kind of a consensus with many of my mentors, and many of them, of course, were clinicians. And they said, Gary, a really nice mix is 2-to-1. For every 2 clinical courses you take 1 behavioral course. So if you break that down statistically, you're saying 2/3 of your CE should be spent in clinical pursuit, and 1/3 of your CE should be spent on the behavioral side. Think about that, Naren. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
It does, because
2-to-1.
you're dealing with human beings, so you need to know how to work with them, both at your team members as well as your patients.
Now, there's a great local resource for all of you that can be a budget stretcher on the behavioral side, and that's to get involved with your a local speakers bureau. Local they're organized in chapters where you can be involved in learning how to speak. And somebody might think, well, I don't have any interest in being a public speaker, Gary. I'd rather slam my head in the car door than being a public speaker. Well, it's not about learning how to be a public speaker. It's really about learning how to communicate to others. And sometimes those are offered at no cost. Those local speakers. There's different brand names associated with those speakers bureau. I'm going to stay out of the brand names, but local speakers bureaus are a great way to learn how to present, to learn how to communicate, to learn how to get your ideas across. And they're either no tuition or very, very modest tuition to be involved in those. Mary Osborne would be a resource that I could not recommend higher. Mary is a behavioral savant. She is a dear, dear person that you spend any time with Mary, and I can assure you your knowledge of behavioral dentistry will go up geometrically. And a great place to get access to Mary is through Restorative Nation, but Google Mary Osborne and see what courses she's giving and where she's going to be and where she's going to be speaking. And run, don't walk. Take anything from Mary Osborne. And of course, I really enjoy this topic at all. Pay attention to what we're doing at Thriving Dentist. We do webinars, we do master classes, and we'd love to have you join us in our webinars and our master classes because much of it relates to the behavioral side of dentistry. Great question. Well, as we come into the finish line today, Naren, this has been a fun topic I'm passionate about. And I hope I've lit some passion around our listeners around who are your mentors? And there's a word that has been a word that I've been focusing on throughout this year. And the word is intentional. Be intentional in your practice. Be intentional in your team building. Be intentional in establishing your values. And be intentional in pursuing your mentors, as opposed to random, as opposed to, well, this course came to town. Be intentional. So we've hopefully provided you some information that helps you to really develop some very cool mentors in your life. On that note, some thanks are in order. And Aaron, thank you for co-hosting this podcast. Appreciate all that you do and all your team does at Equa to help dentists attract quality new patients. By the way, speaking of mentors, I'd like you to think of Naren and Equa as your marketing mentors. If you want to learn more about how Equa can help you attract quality new patients, just go to www.equa.com /MSM, and that stands for Marketing Strategy Meeting. And you can schedule a strategy meeting with one of Naren's team members where they can share with you how you can master the world of digital marketing. You'll get quality new patients, and you'll get better results than you ever have, and you'll spend less than you ever have on marketing. Final note, I want to thank all of our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't done this already, be sure to hit subscribe in whatever podcast directory you listen to the Thriving Dentist Show. That means every Wednesday when we upload a new show, it'll be automatically uploaded for your listening convenience. On that note, thank you for the privilege of your time. Naren and I look forward to connecting with you on the next Thriving Dentist Show.